Good morning, class. I'm Dr. Susan Pierce, and I'm going to be your sociology professor for the next few weeks. I'm very thrilled to meet you. I'm very honored to be able to teach you this semester, and I'm looking forward to getting to know you as well as I can using this type of format. I think we can do it. So let's get started. Let me say a little bit about my background, and I say a little bit more in this PowerPoint that you're about to view after watching this video. I have been here at ECU now for 12 years, and I came in as an assistant professor, tenure track professor, got tenure, and I have really enjoyed being in Greenville and being at ECU. I think we've got great professors here, fascinating research going on, a real community spirit, as you can tell. And I think that we're managing the crisis actually not too bad. So stick with us, and I think we're going to get through this together. I'll say a little bit more about my background. I have a bachelor's degree in sociology. I was a music minor in college, and I also have a Master of Divinity degree, and I have my master's and doctorate in sociology from a university called the New School for Social Research in New York City. And I see we have one New York student among us, so hello there. And I have lived in a number of places. I grew up in Mississippi, so Eastern North Carolina reminds me a lot of that, a lot of the same food actually. And then we moved to the Washington, D.C. area when I was 16. So I finished high school in Northern Virginia, and my father was working for the Veterans Administration, so we got transferred there. And I see that we have one student from Virginia, so a shout out to the Virginian. I have also taught in a number of places. After I finished my doctorate, I taught in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania at Gettysburg College. And then I had the wonderful opportunity to go overseas and teach in Poland for 5 years. Most of the time was in Gdańsk, Poland, which is up on the Baltic Sea, and is a famous place where the Solidarity movement in the 1980s actually erupted. It was a huge protest movement that ended up being very famous for pushing back against the totalitarian systems that eventually brought down the communist systems, and you probably know a little about the fall of the Berlin Wall in 1989. So that was a wonderful experience, and then I came back. I lived in Maryland for a while. I got to live in Baltimore, and I got to work at a nonprofit organization at University of Maryland. Then I had the opportunity to teach at West Virginia University for 3 years, and it was interesting when I moved from there to ECU because at that time we were huge football rivals, and I think ECU beat WVU my first year for the first time in a long, long time, but I think they're no longer in our conference, so some of our athletes might be able to tell us more about that. I don't keep up too much with the football sports, but I think we might have a football player or more among us, so you can help educate us about that. So let me just move on to say a little bit more about what's going on. This is a survey course, so it's going to be an overview of sociology. You're going to be getting to know what the field of sociology is all about, the many topics we study, how we do research, some of our recent contributions to knowledge. I'll tell you more about the kind of research that I work on. Some of you, I see there's some psychology majors among you, and you may find some overlaps actually between some of your psychology courses and sociology, but you'll also see some of the differences in the way we approach some of our research, but definitely some overlap there. Right now, with the global pandemic and uprisings in our streets, sociology is as relevant as ever. Our disease specialists are hard at work, but so are our social scientists, documenting why one demographic group is getting sicker than another, right? Why protests are happening at this moment. And for example, why historical monuments are coming down here and around the world. And North Carolina is part of that story if you've been keeping up with the news. We have moved our brought down our monument here in Pitt County, and I was one of the voices that was in favor of bringing that down. And we have also been seeing the Black Lives Matter movement in our midst. So much to think about and research here in our midst. I hope that all of you are negotiating what's being called the new normal right now, and we're still figuring out how long that new normal will be normal. I have some of your surveys already, and I'm sorry to hear that one of your family members has COVID or has had COVID, and we want to say that we will keep you and your family in our thoughts, even though I don't know exactly who this is because it's an anonymous survey. Another one of you has a family member on the front lines of battling the disease, so we will also keep you in our thoughts. And I see that several of you are intended nursing majors, so you may also be thinking about the risks in your near future. So much to think about here as we come together to study sociology. We are all inside a lot more these days, right? And we're more reliable on technology, as you know. Some of your family members are likely working from home now. And I hope you're able to have reliable internet or can get to a place to make it work for you. A couple of weeks ago, I was having internet connection issues that took a good bit of time for the help desk to actually figure out. And these were internet issues at home. So I was labeling it Stump the Geeks Week. I don't know if they appreciated that. But I was reminded of a moment years back, and I told one of the tech people about this. In the old days of the DOS operating system, way before your time, and my dad couldn't get his computer to work, and the DOS words just typed on the screen, "Sing serial port." So he and my mom and I stood in front of the computer, and we sang the word serial port. I won't try to sing that for you. And guess what? It worked. His computer started working after that. So if you run into computer issues, try singing. I see we have a couple of music majors, so maybe your computers are going to work better than the rest of ours. I wish I were in the classroom with you because I love teaching summer school. It feels like summer camp to me, and the students often really bond in summer school and when we're face-to-face. We're also in a more relaxing weather period. I think that, right, contributes to it, helps with the atmosphere. But we're going to do the best we can. We're fortunate that we're in a time in history when we can keep going with our teaching, right, and learning despite the challenges. So in looking through the list of students that we have with us, I see that we have, as I mentioned, we have some music majors, we have some psychology majors. I think there's some of you who are working in computer technology. I see there's a sports management person, some of you undecided, and I look forward to getting to know who you are more. We have some seniors, we have some that are just starting college, so welcome to all of you. I want to say something about my teaching philosophy, and especially want to emphasize it because it's a little more challenging to do what I do when we're online. But I'm going to do the best I can, and I'd like you to help me with that process. And that is, for the most part, I'm not a lecturer who just gives you a bunch of stuff to think about, to remember, and to regurgitate, right? We know from a lot of research into educational pedagogy that doesn't work, that the material doesn't stay with you for very long, right? You don't get invested in it, you don't get emotionally invested in it. And so I prefer to figure out how this can be a learning experience where we are engaged with one another, where your thought process is part of the learning experience. In other words, I want to hear from you. I want you to be asking questions, challenging information, coming back with new ideas, maybe coming up with some new theories. Sometimes in my theory class, I'll ask students to create a new theory, and they come up with terms that, to their knowledge, have never been invented before. So this is a time that I want you to stimulate your learning, right? I'd rather you not look at this as a course that you just have to get through for your general education requirements, which I know you have to do, right? But as a course that maybe will stick with you. I'm hoping and I'm thinking that you're going to find information that's going to be relevant for your major, whatever that is, and for your career. Anyone who's planning to go into the medical field, and I just heard from one of you who's planning to do that, you should know that there are sociology questions on the MCAT exams to get into medical school. So think about that. Everybody think about that. Why would people preparing to go into medicine need to know something about sociology? Same with psychology, right? So one of the people who has inspired my teaching style and approach was a Brazilian educator named Paulo Freire. And he wrote a book called Pedagogy of the Oppressed. And what he said was this. He said that we have, for the most part, used a teaching method that's not very helpful to students. So that teaching method is what he called the banking method. The banking method is, I think you can probably imagine it, the professor is the keeper of the knowledge, the storage of all the knowledge in their head, and they basically spit it out in a lecture. The students regurgitate the same information, right, on a test, and that's the class. He said that's not useful either for really learning, for retaining the information, but it's also not useful for people developing a critical voice, right, of being able to, for example, challenge the environment they're in and think about how things are working and not working, and how things can be improved, how things can be changed, maybe how things can be revolutionized. And what he meant by the banking method, if you think of it as a metaphor, right? Think of yourself as a student, and you are a banking, let's say a banking checking account, right? And as the professor, I am the depositor. I am the customer who comes to put my money in you, okay? And so what that means is I come and just deposit it, you kind of absorb it and sit on it, right? And you have that information there in your account. But then I leave and that's it, right? What happens to it? And so I want to challenge that banking approach and say that this is a course where we are working together to think about, create knowledge, understand it, and I am open to all of your questions, all of your challenges, okay? We are a discipline that you will see is very much about evidence and research, as really all your subject matter is in college, right? And it is also a field where the subjects that we study are subjects that people have a lot of opinions about, right? There are a lot of things in our book that you'll see are right there in the political debates. And so sometimes there are a lot of opinions about this, and we will get into some discussions, right, about some of these issues. But what I want to ask you to do is to think about your opinion, and when you do voice your opinion, let's say in a discussion board, to have it based on evidence, have it based on something you've read, some research, right? Let's challenge ourselves to always have the conversation at that level. So this is going to be a class that will stimulate your critical thinking skills, I hope, and give you, for example, the skills to question some news items that you're getting, right? You get a news item about, let's say, the latest research on what populations COVID is most likely to be seen in. And instead of just reading the headline or the surface data, challenge yourself to go further into that study and see, okay, has this study been done with enough people? Has it been done across countries? What were the demographics of the people who were in the study? And what do we do with this knowledge? Is there a way that this study might be potentially harmful to some groups? Is there a way that this study maybe should be replicated again? Has the study been peer-reviewed? And that's something that you're seeing more and more in news accounts now, because sometimes studies are now being posted before they've gone through a rigorous, what we call blind peer review, right? Where other scholars can criticize it and say, here's where it's not holding up. And a lot of those studies are getting out there in the public, and sometimes we're, including myself, right? We're thinking about them, taking them in without realizing that this might not hold up to peer review. So all that to say that sociology is good at helping you understand what goes into research, so you can actually question some of what you're reading in the news. So let's talk about the syllabus. I have posted the syllabus on Canvas. I am new to Canvas, so where you see syllabus there on the left side, if your interface looks like mine, you'll see a summary of the course, and I didn't see a place to upload the syllabus there. So if you go down to Files, you'll find it under Files. And I'm going to keep working to figure out how I can get it under the Syllabus tab. So this is going to be a bit of a learning experience, I think, for all of us. I'm going to post each day's class under the Modules section using a PowerPoint like this one. So check through each slide as you read each slide. Some of them are going to have an audio with it on the slide, and you'll see a speaker button to click on, and that includes this PowerPoint too. So after this video, keep going, and you'll find some audio as well. So the textbook, there was a little confusion over the page numbers, and I have figured out the mystery. All right, so this is the book that you need, The Real World. It looks like this. Okay, and I am sitting here with, that is the 6th edition. I'm sitting here with the 7th edition, which looks like this. And this is the edition that will be coming out in the fall, which we won't use because it wasn't ready yet. But as you can see, they look very similar, and I somehow picked up the new edition and used those page numbers, which are a little different. So 6th edition, those of you who wrote me and said, I have, chapter 16 is on different page numbers. You were right, and I will use the right edition from here on. So let's talk about the syllabus a little for a moment. You will see that the first part of it has an introduction to what we're going to be doing together. So I want you to read through things like the Social Science Foundations requirement, the types of things that you're going to need to be able to master by the end of this class. And the schedule, as I mentioned already, this is an asynchronous fashion. So you can, work on the coursework on a different time or day than what's on the schedule, okay? But you need to keep up. I'm going to have the class meeting on Mondays through Thursdays. And so it's best if you can keep up by the day because I'm needing you to post on the discussion boards as soon as possible after that class that I put up so that students can start to respond to each other. I want you to respond to each other. So if you can post once in response to the class and then come back and respond a second time to people who may have responded to you or to other people who've posted. Okay, you got that? So I'd like you to post twice each time that there is a discussion board. And you'll see the calendar for that in a minute. All right, if you have the syllabus in front of you, it talks about the 2 books. So in addition to The Real World, as I said, the other one is this book, Evicted by Matthew Desmond. I'm very excited that we're going to be using this book. He was on campus a few years ago. This book was the first year read for some people, so it might have been for some of you who are seniors. I don't know. And this is a sociologist. This was his doctoral dissertation. He went and spent several months living in 2 different neighborhoods in Milwaukee and studied housing insecurity and eviction. There's a lot we can learn from him, and there's a lot that's going to be relevant right now. I think as we read this, we're going to also find out about evictions that are happening in our world right now with the financial crisis that's come with COVID. I have mentioned my approach to learning, so I think that's pretty clear. I'll kind of skip skip that, but I'd like you to be well prepared. In other words, make sure that you've done the readings and go to the discussion boards with the knowledge of what you've read. What are the assignments? We're going to have 3 mini tests, okay, and each test is 15% of your grade. And these are going to be at the end of each week, not this week, however, of all the material from that week's classes. So there'll be approximately 25 to 30 questions per test, and I want you to lock down your browser, not have your notes in front of you, not have your books in front of you, and that's not something that I can monitor, obviously, but you're only going to have 45 minutes to complete these tests, and so that means there's not really time to look up the answers anyway, so you need to know the material. There won't be formal study guides, but the tests will be open 36 hours, so it'll begin at noon each Sunday to midnight the next day on Monday. And you won't be able to retake the test, so you need to be prepared when you're ready to take it. And make sure that your browsers and tabs and everything else is completely closed. And I do recommend going to one of our computer labs, but I think that's not going to be possible this summer. So let me know if you do have a problem getting to a place to take the test. There's also going to be 2 short reflection papers. So these won't take a lot of your time, but I do want you to put a lot of effort into them. I want you to write them and rewrite them. I want you to do some editing of yourself, because if you throw something together at the last minute, it's not going to get a good grade, okay? The first is going to be a reflection of the book Evicted, and I'm going to give you some guidelines on what I'm looking for in that. And the second is going to be an everyday sociology reflection. So I'm going to ask you to write a 2 or 3 page paper that's reflecting on either the COVID situation in our societies or the current Black Lives Matter protests. You get to choose. And I will also be sending you details about that. The discussion boards. So these are 15% of your grades. There are going to be about 9 of those across our time together. So it's about 2 per week. And this is going to be your grade for regular attendance and participation. I'll also be checking to see how often you go into Canvas. That'll be part of your attendance as well. And I want to make sure that you are reading the reading and understanding the lecture and presentation. So I want you to have at least one substantial 1-paragraph reflection, and that you do that within 48 hours of the scheduled class. And then at least 1-paragraph response to another student's post. So I'm looking for some really good discussion here. And I like to bring in what you have posted into my next day's lecture. So please help me to get to know you better and your thought process. Give us something substantial. Don't just post, I agree. That's something that students tend to do, right? It's just to want to say, well, I agree. Maybe try to play devil's advocate. Maybe you do agree, but try to challenge some critical thinking of your colleagues in this, so we get a really good, rich discussion going on. And then there's going to be a final longer exam, 40 to 50 questions. It will be cumulative. The mini tests and the final exam are all going to be multiple choice, true, false, matching, not discussion questions. So the attendance is required, and actually part of this isn't relevant to you. It's from a face-to-face class, so I won't be taking attendance regularly as this says, but what I'm going to do is to look at your overall attendance across the semester by seeing your discussion board posts, as well as how many of you are logging into Canvas regularly. There's an Excel formula for you to figure out your grade, and here's the grading scale. I use 100 points for a grading scale. I don't have the point system where you add up to 1,000 points or 2,000 points. Diversity in learning, I am very accommodating. If you have a disability that I need to know about, let me know. And we also have the disability office that can help you. Fortunately, there's some really good tools right now, internet tools that are putting text on images for those of you if someone is blind, for example. So let me know how I can support you. I want to emphasize something that we need to start doing more, and that is a land acknowledgement. So I'll read this to you, that we acknowledge the Tuscarora people, who are the traditional custodians of the land on which we work and live, and recognize their continuing connection to the land, water, and air that Greenville consumes. And with respect to 8 recognized tribes: Kohari, Eastern Band of Cherokee, Halawi Saponi, Lumbee, Meherrin, Occaneechi, Band of Saponi, and Waccamaw Sian, all nations and their elders, past, present, and emerging. And some of you may be members or descendants of those tribes. So that is our land acknowledgement. We also have a non-discrimination statement that I want to emphasize as well, that we are committed to equality of education based on our belief that everyone deserves an equal education. And so there's no discrimination based on race, color, national origin, gender, religion, sexuality, age, disability, gender expression, gender identity. And if you have a pronoun that you prefer to use, please let us know that. Let me know that. You can put it in your discussion board. If you are someone who likes to be referred to as they rather than she, please do let me know. If you use something like MX, for example, instead of Ms. or Mr., that is something that we are growing in recognition of. And as you can see from the Department of Sociology website, the ECU Sociology Department is committed to the understanding of and respect for human diversity across races, nationalities, religions, educations, genders, sexualities, regions, languages, and physical and mental abilities. We've also posted a recent statement about racism, against racism, on our site, and I'd like you to take a look at that. Other aspects of this, I'm going to have you read yourself. Academic integrity, you need to know what cheating is, what plagiarism is, falsification, and what the penalties are for that. I do take it very seriously. You could fail this class, even online, if I find that there is cheating going on. Check Canvas regularly for announcement and updates. Remember netiquette. Remember the rights and feelings of the people that you are corresponding with, okay? And note that the syllabus and course schedule might change. Hopefully it won't, but if there's some need for the interruption, I will let you know. You need to know the due dates of the assignments and exams. Do the reading before my so-called lecture. And look through the calendar. So the calendar starts obviously today. It goes through July 31st, which is the final day, and that's the day that our final exam will be. As you can see, I have put in red when the discussion posts are due, and I have also put in red when each of the mini tests are. And you'll see that we're going to be reading the Ferris and Stein book for the first couple of weeks, and then we're going to move into our reading of the book Evicted, which we will finish up July 16th, and then move back to Ferris and Stein for the rest of the semester. I may also post some additional small readings for you, such as perhaps a newspaper article or a blog post. There's a blog that goes along with our class called Everyday Sociology Blog that's really excellent, that I will refer to from time to time. Sometimes I'll have a movie for you to watch or short videos. Please budget your time well. Work hard, but take breaks. Look ahead for the deadlines so that you're on top of them. They're not on top of you, right? That makes it less stressful. A survey class like this is going to cover a lot of ground. Some of it's going to be in depth, some of it won't be as much in depth because it's a survey class, right? We will have a lot of terminology, and that might feel a little overwhelming. And although you're going to be needing to use some memorization skills to understand that terminology, I'm not asking if you can spit out an exact definition of a word and make sure that definition is exactly word for word like it is in your textbook. But I want you to be able to recognize the word, to be able to apply it, right? To be able to maybe distinguish it from other terms. So I'll give you an example here. The word norms that you thought about for our next discussion board. We have informal versus formal norms, right? Informal norms are handshakes. Formal norms are laws. So on a test, I might ask if opening the door for someone in a restaurant is a formal or an informal norm. A question for discussion right now, right? Is wearing a face mask a formal or an informal norm? How would we judge that? Maybe is it moving from being an informal norm to being a formal norm? And so I hope that you're going to get some knowledge out of this class that will not only enhance your lives and your future careers, I hope we'll also get some majors, sociology majors and or minors out of this class. And I look forward to getting to know you. For the discussion board for tomorrow, I'm asking you to reflect on the terms norms and anomie, right? And this is going to be a full class discussion. I also want you to introduce yourself to your classmates because the whole class is going to be in this first discussion board. And then I'm going to divide you into groups for the other discussion boards for the rest of the class. We might juggle those around so you get to move into a different group, let's say mid-semester. I mentioned I was a music minor in college, and as you'll likely notice, I love the arts. So you may find me bringing the arts and culture into our discussions a lot. I'm a sociologist of culture, and I'm sure we have some athletes in the class, so I want to give a shout out to sports as well. I love swimming and biking. I used to be a runner, but I've decided to protect my knees and power walk instead. You're also going to hear me bringing in international examples and perspectives. It's important to broaden all our knowledge and understanding of the world, to use it to understand how societies work and don't work, and to help us think comparatively about our own society. As you probably can tell, COVID is heightening our global awareness and our interconnectedness across the oceans and our collaborative responsibilities to each other. So we're all thinking about our global connections right now. Okay, so from the surveys I've read so far, several of you don't have the book yet, so I'm going to be scanning the reading for tomorrow and for Monday and posting it as soon as I can later this morning, and I'll email you when it's ready. And just what I've learned from some of you is that we have several of you from the Triangle area, one or two at least for now from Pitt County. I think we'll have more because I haven't heard from all of you. And one from Virginia, one from New York, and looking forward to hearing where the rest of you are from. Several from Eastern North Carolina as well. So stay on top of email, look for announcements, and I will see you tomorrow. Take care.